Hard to believe it's already the end of 2019, and even harder to believe that it's the end of the decade. Good morning, everybody. Templar74 here with another video. This video arguably being one of my favorite videos to do, and that is the annual hashtag AskTemplar74 end-of-year Q&A for 2019. That's right, everybody. As hard as it is to believe, 2019 is almost over, and as I alluded to earlier, hard to believe that we're almost into a new decade. In fact, we had this conversation at work the other day. I was at the ambulance. It was my last shift for the year, and one of my coworkers really threw me off when he said, "I'll see you next decade." And I kind of took it back to that, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. And then I realized, oh wait, yep, he's right. I'm going to see him next decade. So yeah, hard to believe we're at this point already. Hard to believe how far the channel's come. But I digress on that whole point. Like I said, the end of year Q&A, it's one of my favorite videos to do every year because I get to interact with you guys more, something I really enjoy doing. And yeah, with that said though, everybody, I got quite a few questions from you guys. I look forward to answering them all. In this video, I am going to actually be answering the questions from the most recent to the first comments. Normally mid-year I do it the other way around. The older comments, or the older questions rather, get answered first, and then I answer the newer ones. End of year I like to mix it up, so I'm going to start with the newer comments, or newer questions. Why do I keep saying comments? Anyway, going to start with the newer questions and then work my way down. So at risk of further rambling, let's get started. And again, thank you all for watching, and I look forward to answering your questions. Okay, first set of questions come from Tyler Brown, and you went on to ask me, well actually first you told me that you can't believe that it's really this time of year again and hope I had a good Christmas. I did, by the way, Tyler. Thank you for asking. I hope you had a great Christmas as well. And then you go on to ask me your questions. The first one is, what anime are you hoping gets a sequel or a new season in the new decade? What are your thoughts on Shield and Sword? And my last question, which is away from the anime gaming topic, but what was the biggest thing to happen to you in 2019? So that's quite a spread of questions here, but they're good questions. So what anime am I hoping gets a sequel or a new season in the new decade? There are actually two that I would love to see get another season or a sequel in the new decade. The first one has got to go to Alternative Gun Gale Online. I've been reading the light novel, and we're actually through book 5 now, and there is a lot that they could do to give this show an epic second season, in my opinion. There's the third squad jam, there's all these new crazy rules. I'm not going to go into spoiler alert, but the light novel was great for this next arc, and I really hope that it gets an anime adaptation. Although something that might be tricky about getting one right away is that the voice actor for Karen, or Lynn, in that series is now going to be voicing the main girl in the next Yu-Gi-Oh series, so it's going to kind of be hard for me to foresee her taking on two big projects like that at once. Not unheard of, but again, probably not something that's going to happen right away. I really do hope that Alternative Gun Gale Online gets a second season, though, just because the light novel really did a great job with the third squad jam. And yeah, I really love to see this crazy team back in action of M, Lin, Pitahui, and Fukuzara. These four would be like the all-star team going in, and it actually does portray a little bit like that in the light novel. So yeah, I'd love to see a second season of that. But again, my expectations and hopes for that are a little bit low at this point, just because, like I said, Karen's voice actor is going to be doing Yu-Gi-Oh! And not only that, we've got the main Sword Art Online series for Alicization, which is still ongoing, and it's got like another 12 episodes left in its fourth quarter run. So I'm not foreseeing them doing Alternative Gun Gale Online Season 2 in the near future, but hey, maybe once Alicization is over, we'll get an announcement on that. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed for that. Another series that I would love to see get another season or a sequel in the new decade would be the Gate series. I know it's not a new series because it aired in 2015, but but I've just recently watched it because you guys all know that I do sometimes watch recommended anime, and, working two jobs, it takes a while for me to get through these recommended anime. But I got to Gate, and I think this was about 2 months ago I got to Gate finally, and I watched that series, fell in love with it. There were so many questions at the end, so many loose ends that could be tied up if it got a second season, or a third season rather, because it did get a second season. But I digress on that. A third season would be great for that series because it would help close some open ends on that. So those would be two animes that I would hope would get another season or a sequel in the next decade. And then you asked me what were my thoughts on Shield and Sword. Okay, so I did buy them both. I did play them both. Shield and Sword was the first mainline Pokemon series game for the Nintendo Switch. So, of course, it's going to have hiccups and it's not going to be perfect. And, Shield and Sword kind of lived up to that. I did have some quirks with it. I did not like some parts of it. I think that a lot of cutscenes were reused. There were a lot of things in there that really could have been done better. But like I said, for a first-time generation on a new console system, because again, this is the first time Pokemon has gone from a handheld to a console in the Switch, you're always going to get those glitches. I think for what it was, and knowing everything and being objective about it, it was a decent game. Not the best Pokemon game by far. I still hold that it is a two-way tie for the best Pokemon games between the Black and White generation and the Sun and Moon generation. Those were two of the best series that Pokemon has ever done for the games, in my opinion. And Shield and Sword definitely is not up there. But for what it was a decent game, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So, yeah, decent game. Did have some quirks and problems with it, but hey, those are come to be expected, knowing that this is the first console game and the first generation on the Switch. So, yeah, Shield and Sword, decent games. Didn't enjoy them nearly as much as I did Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon, but they were still decent for what they were, in my opinion. Okay, and then your final question, and this was a more personal question, but it's okay because I like personal questions. What was the biggest thing to happen to me in 2019? So, 2019 was definitely an up and down year, to say the least. Had quite a few bad things happen, but I did have some good things happen as well. I think probably the best thing that happened to me was, and I think this was about March, I got a phone call because on top of being a paramedic for the local ambulance service, I was also a reservist sheriff deputy. And I had gotten a phone call from the sheriff saying, hey, we have 3 open positions for full-time deputies now, and you are up there in the ranking, Chris. Do you want to become a full-time sheriff's deputy or deputy sheriff and come off of reserves? And when I heard that, I jumped up out of my seat. I volunteered right off the bat. I loved the opportunity, and I was waiting for my chance to rise up from reserves to being an active deputy sheriff. And so when I got the chance for that, I jumped on it almost immediately. It was a dream of mine ever since I was a little boy. I either wanted to be in the military, a paramedic, or I wanted to become a deputy sheriff. I didn't get into the military, but I did become a deputy sheriff and a paramedic. So 2 out of 3 is not bad, in my opinion. I think that was the highlight of the year. And then not shortly thereafter, when I got in onto the sheriff's roster full time, I was offered the opportunity to go to canine training and to become a canine handler. And I jumped up, did that ecstatically, and I was joined by my newest canine partner. In fact, he's right here at my feet right now. Good boy. Roscoe. He's a German Shepherd. He's about 4 years old, and we've been working together ever since we got out of canine training. We've been working the streets together. I love this dog. He's a good boy, and he'll do anything for me. He's a great family member. My folks love him. My nieces and nephews love him, and I love him. Let's be honest. He lives with me full time, and he's a good boy. He's a really good boy. And he really loves going after the bad guys, don't you? When he's not chewing on his tennis ball or enjoying his puppuccino at the local Starbucks. But yeah, so becoming a canine handler and becoming a full-time deputy were probably the highlights of the year. But then there were also some turbulent parts of the year as well. In February, me and my wife kind of decided, it wasn't that we didn't love each other anymore. Um, Basically, we were too much alike. We were better friends than we were as a couple. And we finally just decided after about February that this wasn't going to work, and we filed for a divorce. So, yeah, that was really a low point. And back to your previous question about anime series, and I go back to Gate here. I watched this, and the main protagonist, Itami, I saw a lot of myself in him, and that's probably why I fell in love with the series, especially when we got to episodes 7 and 8, when we got introduced to his ex-wife. I literally showed that part to my ex-wife, Kelly, and she saw that and she said, oh my gosh, that's us. And yeah, we're still great friends, don't get me wrong. We still talk to each other, we still hang out, we're still great friends, but we just couldn't do the marriage thing anymore. So that was really that was a lower point of the year. And the other lower point of the year was early in the summer, while on patrol, I actually ended up getting shot at and took a round at my vest here. Thank God for bulletproof vests. So yeah, those were the two lower points of the year, my divorce and, of course, being shot. So yeah, those would be low points for anybody, in my opinion. But yeah, so it was a real mixed bag in 2019. Really, I think the most memorable things here were those. Most of them were good, some of them were bad. The divorce and being shot were probably the lower points of the year, and the becoming a full-time sheriff's deputy and a canine handler, both childhood dreams of mine. So the fact that those came true were really, really awesome in my opinion. But with that, though, I think that about answers all your questions, Tyler. Again, I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and I hope I answered your questions. I look forward to hearing from you again in the near future. Okay, next we have Sarah Hardwick, and you go on to say, good morning, Chris. Hope you are well. I am well. Thank you, Sarah. I hope you are too. And then you ask me your questions for the Q&A. Your first question is, what was an anime I watched in 2019 that I really enjoyed? What was your favorite 2019 movie? And 3, Coke or Pepsi? Really, that last one's not even a question. But no, I'll answer that one in just a second. But to go back to your first question, what was an anime you watched in 2019 that you really enjoyed? Okay, so for sake of simplicity, I am going to not include Yu-Gi-Oh!, SAO, or Pokemon here, just because those are the 3 main series, and I pretty much let you guys know what I think about them weekly. But other than that, though, there was another anime, and I did allude to this during Tyler's question here, an anime that I watched in 2019 that I really enjoyed. It didn't come out in 2019, it was from 2015, but I finally got around to watching it. That would be the Gate series. I really did enjoy that one. Like I said, just a good mix of drama and action here. I really saw a lot of myself in Itami, and I really think that's why I clicked with that series so much. But yeah, that was a series that I watched in 2019 that I really enjoyed. And again, I'm going to leave SAO, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon out of that equation altogether because essentially you guys know what my thoughts are on that just week to week. So with that being said, though, I think your first question has got to go to Gate to answer it. Your second question, what was my favorite 2019 movie? I'm assuming that means what was my favorite movie from 2019 that I've seen. And I think that's actually going to be a tough one to answer. I think really when it comes down to it, there were 2 movies that I saw this year that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the Detective Pikachu movie, and I actually make this a rule that I do not go and see movies at the movie theater. I think there's only been maybe 1 or 2 exceptions ever where I've actually broken down and said, okay, I will pay the money to go to the movie theater and see the movie. Detective Pikachu is one of those handful of movies that I've actually broken that rule for, and I really wasn't disappointed with it. I really did enjoy that movie, and Ryan Reynolds did a great job in that movie. It was just a good movie all the way around here. With that said, though, another movie that was a close contender for my favorite movie of 2019 has got to be the latest Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker. I went and saw that one. I'm not going to go into spoilers because a lot of people haven't seen that movie yet, but it was a fantastic movie. I loved that movie. I really am a Star Wars nut. A little known fact about me, everybody. Yes, I am not just an anime nerd, I am a Star Wars nerd. And that was arguably one of my favorite movies of this year. Like I said, if you're going to ask me what my favorite movies of 2019 were, it was either The Rise of Skywalker or Detective Pikachu. It was a close tie between those two because, like I said, I usually don't go to movie theaters to watch movies. There's only been a handful of movies ever that I've broken that rule for, and both of those were, in fact, rule breakers, and I'm really glad that I broke those rules to go see those movies. But with that being said, though, that pretty much answers my question on favorite 2019 movie. And then your third question, Coke or Pepsi? And I said this was not really a question at all because, I mean, it's got to be Pepsi, hands down. Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, let's put it this way. Coca-Cola will take acid off of a battery. Something like that, I will not put into my system. I mean, I know soda's bad for you in general, and as an EMT, my go-to drink is actually coffee. I'm not really big of a soda drinker, but when I do drink soda, it's got to be Pepsi. I mean, Pepsi, it's a sweeter beverage, and it doesn't take acid off of a battery, and you cannot substitute it for drain cleaner like you can with Coca-Cola. I cannot make this up. I remember watching Mythbusters when they were going through all the myths about Coca-Cola, about how you could substitute it as a drain cleaner. That turned out to be true. It would take acid off of a car battery. That turned out to be true as well. So something like that you really don't want to put in your system. When I could easily substitute it for hazardous chemicals, I usually try to make that a rule that I do not put that in my body. But again, maybe that's just me. Again, Coke or Pepsi, got to go to Pepsi Cola. Hands down, in my opinion. Again, not a big soda drinker. I prefer my coffee. But when I drink soda, it's got to be Pepsi Cola. But with that said, though, Sarah, I hope that answered your questions. Hope you had a wonderful 2019, and I hope to hear again from you in the near future. Okay, next up we have Grenade Man 1. And before I get into your question, though, Grenade Man, I gotta say, I love that name. I know I've said this before, but every time I do these Q&As, I usually see your name pop up, and that name just brings a smile to my face. I just love it for some reason. Grenade Man 1. Nice choice of names, everybody. But yeah, with that said, though, Grenade Man, love the name. Back to your question, though. You go on to ask me if I had the position to write the entire Sword and Shield anime, would I write it as if Satoshi acts as a coach for the new kid, as if it is his way of passing the torch, or would I write it another way, and why? Also, keep up the good work, pal. And thank you so much for the kind words, Grenade Man. I really do enjoy it when you guys enjoy these videos. It not only brings a smile to my face, and I do want to take a bit of a step back here, and I do want to give credit where credit is due. A lot of the videos, especially in the past year, now don't get me wrong, I've done the bulk of the writing, but there's also another hand in these videos that needs to have the credit given where credit is due, and that is to my ex-wife, Kelly. She wrote quite a bit of the previous videos that I've done this year. She wrote a little bit of the Straight to Heart series. Most of it was my idea, but she wrote out some of the details that I was not able to fill in adequately, or, I've just gotten so busy. There were a couple of times where I started halfway through a video, and she stepped in, picked up where I left off, and wrote more of the series in for me. Again, she loves the videos just as much as I did. Another reason why we got along, and we were kind of a team there for a while. And yeah, even after the messy divorce we went through, well, not so messy because we're still friends, but yeah, after the divorce though, she still stuck by and she did some of the writing when I was in a pinch. Really cannot thank her enough for that. So yeah, some of these videos, the more lovey-dovey stuff, and actually, you can actually go back and look at these videos, and I actually tell people this and it blows their mind. But if you go back and watch some of these videos from the past here, you can really tell the difference in writing style. And normally when you see the difference in writing style, that's usually a telltale sign of who wrote it. I wrote more of the action-y stuff, and I wrote a bit of the romance stuff, but Kelly was mostly responsible for the lovey-dovey stuff. She was responsible for filling in a lot of the plot holes and blanks. Again, she really loved the series as much as I did, and it was something we bonded over. And so even after the divorce, she was really instrumental in helping me finish these last couple of series that I've done, because like I said, having two jobs, it really was getting difficult in crunch time to get videos done, and so she really stepped up to the plate and helped out, and I cannot thank her enough for that. So yeah, she was responsible for a bit of the writing. I did most of it, but she really helped fill in the blanks and really stood up and helped me when times got tough and when I really needed the help. So shout out to her. Again, she's amazing at what she does with writing, and I'm sure she won't mind if I share this information. But a little bit of her history: she's also a journalist here for our local newspapers, so she really has a way with writing. And again, writing the videos was something that we both bonded over, and yeah, she wasn't afraid to step up and help me when I got stuck, or we had a bit of a issue here in town where work took my attention away from writing videos for you guys. She really stood up and helped me out. So can't thank her enough for that. But again, I'm rambling on that. Back to your question though, Grenade Man, about how I would write it. If I had my choice of writing it, and I think this would probably hold true even if it was a big anime project like this, if that were to ever happen, I would say that I would probably want Kelly at my back as an extra writer. Even the videos she helped me out a great deal with. So I think it would only be fair to have her help me here. And I think if the two of us were to sit down and write an anime series, we would probably write it out probably kind of similar to what we did in the videos, where Ash kind of stood back a little bit. He wasn't the highlight, but he acted as the coach for the next generation, and he was somebody that everybody looked up to. I think I'd probably go down more that angle, and I'm sure if Kelly was here, she would agree with me on that. But yeah, like I said, if I had the opportunity, I would definitely want Kelly as my partner to help me write. And yeah, we would probably write it probably pretty close to how we wrote the fan fiction series, where Ash stepped back. He wasn't the main focus, but he was still there. He was acting as the idol that everybody was looking up to, and he would act kind of as the bearer of the old guard, where he would be bringing up the next generation or teaching the next generation his ways, and that's how I would write it, in my opinion. I see a little bit of this here in the new series. I won't lie, I do see a little bit of it between Ash and Go here. I do see Ash kind of helping Go and kind of, being by his side for things that he's new to, but I would definitely take it a few steps further than what they actually did, in my opinion. Again, those would be my thoughts on that. I would probably write it that way. And yeah, I would definitely keep the kind of style of Ash being the guardian figure, or the bearer of the old guard, so to speak, and he would be teaching the next generation of trainers his way. But yeah, that's probably how I would write the Shield and Sword anime if I ever had the opportunity to write the anime like that. Never gonna happen, but yeah, if I ever had that opportunity, like I said, I'd want Kelly by my side to help me write it, and that's probably how we would write it, in my opinion, just knowing her and knowing myself. So anyway, Grenade Man, I hope that answers your questions, and I look forward to hearing from you in the next year. And yeah, I hope you have a good one, man. And again, I love that name. Okay, next up we have Minor Mole, and your questions were as followed. Your first question is, when using music for background for your YouTube videos, why do you use symphonic music played by a college or a professional band or orchestra? Nothing wrong with it, I personally like it, because hardly any YouTuber does that, therefore essentially making your videos unique, even though I also do it when I do my own videos, and it's definitely a good break from all the modern techno music. Your next question is, what is my ranking for each individual Pokemon anime saga from original series to 2019, or Shield and Sword for people that call it that? You can tier list if it's easier for you. And your third question is, what are my favorite video game franchises or series? Can be first, second, third party, indie, or whatever else I'm missing out there. Okay, a lot of questions here. Your first question, when using the music for backgrounds for my YouTube videos and why I choose that, I just like the sound. And it's unique because you pointed out the same thing that I always noticed, because before I started doing this, I watched people that kind of did the same thing, and their choice of music was actually just atrocious in my opinion. But I do actually care for the symphonic music more than I do the other types of music out there. I do prefer it overall. I think it's more relaxing, it's more mood setting, and that's probably why I choose to use it so much when I do the video editing here, and that's probably why I do it. Again, it's different from everybody else, it's unique, it's soothing, it creates a different mood in my opinion, and yeah, that's why I do it, man. It's just one of those things where if you like it, go with it. You roll the dice. If people love it, hey, you're onto something. If people don't love it, well, you're doing it the way that you like it. You're doing it the way that you envision it. So, yeah, that's essentially my logic behind it. And then your next question, what is my ranking for different Pokemon anime saga from original series to 2019 or Shield and Sword? Okay, this is probably going to be one of the more controversial questions I answer, just because of how everybody ranks the Pokemon anime. No matter what you pick as your tier list or what you pick as your favorite generation, there's always going to be somebody that disagrees with you, and there's always that toxic person that's going to start a war with you over your choice. It doesn't matter if your choice is the exact same as theirs, they will still find a reason to argue with you. But with that said, though, I'm just going to rank these as generational rather than go through and name all the sagas, just for sake of simplicity, because each of the anime generations have several arcs in them, several different series names in them. So for sake of simplicity, I'm just going to go by generations. And I think those rankings would come as followed. The first one has got to go to Gen 6, which would be XY, XY, and Z, and the Mega Evolution arc. I really loved this series just because of how more mature it was as a setting. It really hit more of the mature anime notes, and it was also, sadly, the last of the original Pokemon generation, in my opinion, before they went to the new studio, the new art style, and they went away from the traditional late 90s, early 2000 anime art style. So XY, XY, and Z was really the swan song for that, and so there are multiple reasons why behind my picking of this as number one. I know it's had critics, I know it's had problems, just like every other series, but still, I think that one holds the number one spot and will for multiple years to come, in my opinion. The next spot would have to go to Diamond and Pearl Sinnoh Gen 4, just because, again, it was the more mature of the series. I think behind XY and XY and Z, this was probably the most mature Pokemon had gone up to that point. I really loved the League, where Ash rotated all of his Pokemon out. This was really Ash as the trainer he should be, in my opinion. So yeah, Diamond and Pearl was really up there, and it holds number 2. Next would have to go to the original generation, the original saga of Kanto, Orange Islands, and Johto, the original Traveling 3. I cried when I learned that Brock and Misty were going away at the end of Johto there. I really was heartbroken about that. I was happy to see Brock return in Advance, though, but yeah, it was just the end of the childhood era, That was the series I grew up with, which arguably would mean that it should be higher on my list, but it's just some of the generations did a little bit better, and so original saga just kind of got knocked down a little bit. But again, childhood nostalgia, it still holds the bronze spot for me as far as Pokemon series go. And now we get into the little more controversial part, and this is the part that I'm sure people are going to argue with me with, and this one actually swapped hands multiple times, and that would be Sun and Moon. I know this is a bit surprising, but hear me out. Towards the end of Sun and Moon, when we got into the League arc, that's when things started changing, in my opinion, for Sun and Moon, and I grew to respect it a little bit more. It was a hit or miss series, and I still stand by that. It did some things catastrophically wrong. It was all over the place as far as the story, in my opinion. But the arcs that it did, when it did individualized arcs, like when it came to the Ultra Beast arcs with Lusamine and Nihilego, when it was Lily's backstory, whether it was Moan, the League, they did quite a few things right. They did several things right, in my opinion. And it was just well animated. The battles were, the music, I loved the music in there. I will give Sun and Moon that. I loved the music. That was the one thing that I almost never criticized about Sun and Moon. But again, Sun and Moon, this is the part that's going to make people argue with me. It stunned me how many times this changed hands with the next on the list, Advance, because there for a while, Sun and Moon had a really strong start, and then it got bumped down on the list for me because we got past the first couple of episodes. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? It got knocked clear down to almost Black and White level. But then we got into the first story arc about Lily's backstory, and then it bumped up. It caught up with Advance. It bumped Black and White, caught up with Advance, and there for a while, Sun and Moon and Advance were swapping hands. They were swapping positions, and it boggled my mind how often I would look back and be like, this is just mind-boggling how a series that I almost had no intention of watching, how often it was jumping with Advance on which one was better. Finally, I think by the end of everything, Sun and Moon finally topped Advance for the final time, and so it sits at number 4 on my list. And now on to Advance, which sits right below Sun and Moon. And again, Advance. I think my biggest problem with it was just the character chemistry. Brock and Ash were really the only ones that had any character chemistry. I was not a big fan of May. I was really not a fan of Max. Bonnie far surpassed Max, in my opinion, but that's a discussion for another day. Advance just was kind of like a reset, in my opinion. I never really cared for Advance, although it did have some good movies. It was just it's sad when your movies do better than the entire saga of the anime, in my opinion. When your movies are doing better than the actual baseline anime, that's usually not a good sign. And Sun and Moon just kind of finally bumped Advance down when we got to the arc there of the League. So yeah, Advance just kind of got knocked down. And then the last tier, the ranked lowest for me, still got to go to Black and White. Still had nothing that could have bumped Black and White up. Even Sun and Moon. I mean, Black and White, the character chemistry was just all over the place. Sun and Moon, at least it had character chemistry amongst some of the characters. I mean, Black and White, it was just Iris, who constantly complained and bitched about everything. And then you had Silent, who was just kind of like the know-it-all. And then there was Ash, who was just completely downgraded from the Gen 4 of Diamond and Pearl. We go into this, and this is what we got. I mean, at least Sun and Moon had some character chemistry. So yeah, Black and White still sits at the very bottom of the list for me, in my opinion. Again, this list is controversial, I know, but you asked me what my series ranks are, and asking me, that's my honest answer for that. So then we go on to your third question, which is, what is my favorite video game franchise or series? I think it's got to come down to, it's 3. It's, maybe 3 or 4. Favorite video game series, I would have to say, as far as racing games go, because I am a fan of the driving racing games, it's either got to go to Forza or Need for Speed. Those would be the 2 for that. I'm kind of a fan of Grand Theft Auto, although not so much anymore, but I was a fan of it when I was younger. Then we go into Pokemon. Of course, that's always going to be up there on the list as well. And then we've got Call of Duty. So yeah, I kind of prefer Call of Duty over Grand Theft Auto. Again, Grand Theft Auto was mostly when I was in high school. I kind of grew out of it, but it's still something I'll pick up and play every so often. So I would say Need for Speed and Forza, Pokemon, and then probably Call of Duty. Those would be that would be the grand ranking for me as far as favorite video game sagas, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So anyway, with that, Minor Mole, I hope that answered your questions. Again, I see your name on almost all these Q&A videos I do. Really look forward to answering your questions. Really hope that I answered them for you, and I hope you have a great day, Minor Mole. And yeah, with that said, we're moving on, everybody. So now we have Jet Hawk, and your questions to me are as follows. Your first question is, as a Serena fan, I like her to come back, much as Dawn and May, to see past friends returning for what new Pokemon they have on their new journey. It'd be amazing to see in the anime, but God, I really do miss them. What are your thoughts? Your second question is, who is my favorite gym leader girl crush? Mine has to be Sabrina. Third, will Ash continue on all his journeys to all regions in Galar, since he will travel all around the world in Pokemon? What region has he not traveled to yet? And then you tell me happy holidays. Keep up the good work for the new year in 2020. Thank you, Jet Hawk. I did have a great holiday season, and I hope you did too. So back to your first question here, and if I'm reading this right, you're asking me what my thoughts are on past friends returning. And I have said this when Shield and Sword or Pokemon 2019 came out, whichever you want to call it. I said it then, I'll say it now. I think that it would be a good way to fill in holes, and I think that this series would probably be the best shot to bring back literally any single traveling companion that Pokemon ever wanted to, just because of the fact that we're going to all the regions all around the world. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. Whether it just be a cameo or a mention, I don't know. But as far as it making sense, I would think that this would be the best region to do it in. Whether they actually do it or not is yet to be seen. I'd love to see it happen, but as far as it actually happening, I really don't know. So yeah, that's basically what I have to say to that question. Your next question is, who is my favorite gym leader girl crush? Mine has to be Sabrina. Oh, gosh. A question that I kind of feel a little uncomfortable answering, because we are talking about Pokemon, you know. It's kind of frowned upon when you have a thing for a young girl, you know. So kind of an awkward question to ask. But since it is the anime world, I guess we can answer it. I would say that probably my favorite gym leader would probably have to be Karina, just because, you know, she's got quite a personality. She's energetic, gotta like that. And yeah, awkward question to answer, but if I were to give you an honest answer, I would say it'd have to be Karina of Shalour Gym in the Kalos region. And yeah, I will leave it at that. So, and then your third question, will Ash continue on all journeys to all regions in Galar, since he will travel all around the world? I really don't understand the question, to be honest with you. And I think that Ash will continue on his journey. I think it's a safe bet to make, and I think that we probably will see every single region in this anime, just because they've already said that they will travel to all the regions. So I think it would be a safe bet. I'd be really curious to see how the Alolan arc would be settled, just because Ash is the champion of Alola, and it's confirmed that this series is just a continuation on the past sagas. That's one generation that I would like to see how it's handled and how it's reacted to. But yeah, I think it's safe to bet that Ash will continue his journey to all the regions, as it says that in the anime title. And yeah, really looking forward to see how these past regions will affect Ash, and whether we'll get any mentions or we'll get any cameos. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So anyway, Jet Hawk, I hope that answered your questions. Thank you so much. And yeah, I hope to hear from you again in the near future. Alright, next we have Iris Ristolian. And Iris, I apologize in advance if I completely butchered that name, but you go on to ask me what inspired me to start this channel, how do I think SAO will end, and then you ask me Pokemon, SAO, Yu-Gi-Oh!, which of them do you think have the best story? And you also tell me that thank you for the great episodes this year, let's go forward into 2020. That's right, everybody. Let's go forward into 2020. Iris, thank you so much for your kind words. Your feedback from all of you guys just means so much to me. But to get back to your questions, Iris, what inspired me to start this channel? I really don't know. I think I started this channel because I started watching Pokemon again. I really got into it with Gen 6. And going on, I was on YouTube and people were basically trying to make Pokemon their own. I never intend to do that, but there are some things that, you go on and you're like, well, I can write this, I can write this, and if I were to write this, this would be the way that I would want to do it, and that would be the whole fan fiction thing, and that's really how I got started into YouTubing, was the fan fiction. It was an escape from the real world. It was a chance for me to just kind of sit back and be like, okay, I've got all these ideas in my head, let's share them with everybody. And, then I went on, I continued writing, I got into Pokemon more, it got me back into the Pokemon franchise as a whole, doing YouTube, and it was just my escape from the real world and escape from things that were going on IRL. And so yeah, and then as time went on, I'm like, okay, I'm writing Pokemon here, I'm writing my own version of Pokemon. This is what I would like to see Pokemon do. And then I got to thinking, well, rather than just write this, why don't I also say what I think Pokemon should do? Why don't I just go ahead and give my thoughts about it? And there were other PokeTubers at the time reviewing the Pokemon anime. I'm like, I can do this. I want to give my thoughts on this too. I want to be part of the conversation, and I want to meet all kinds of great people. And I think that's what really got the channel going at that point. So again, just kind of an escape from the real world and wanting to share my thoughts and interact with the other great people in the community. And as time went on, it expanded into other series until we eventually got the Templar 74 channel that we have today. So in short, I think that answers that question. Just wanting to interact with people and an escape from the real world in real life. So yeah, there is that. And then your second question, Iris, how do I think SAO will end? And I say this all the time. SAO will most likely end with Kirito and Asuna at the very end together, starting their new life together. And I know this is a bit of a stretch, but if they ever were to write it this way, I think there are ways that can make it happen. I would love to see Asuna and Kirito together at the end with their new family, including Yui, who had been brought into the real world. Again, kind of a little bit of a stretch for that, but if they were to end it, I would think that would be how they would have to end it at this point. Kirito and Asuna together with the beginning of a new family, with Yui, with their friends, that's pretty much how they have to end it now, because they pretty much got the fandom completely sold that that's how it'll end finally once they get to that point. I don't see it ending in the near future, but I think for the sake of the fan base, that's how it has to happen at this point. And then you ask me, Pokemon, SAO, Yu-Gi-Oh!, which of them do you think have the best story? And this one is kind of difficult to answer, just because these are three completely different series, three completely different storylines, three completely different timelines. It's hard to compare these. I would think, as far as the more mature story goes, I would say SAO would probably take it. But then, of course, you've also got Yu-Gi-Oh! That does a lot of things right. And then you've got Pokemon that does do things right. It's just hard to compare them. I think each of them does a little bit of what they were intended to do better than the others. I think Pokemon is the better story for a younger generation, but can appeal to all generations. I think that's unanimously agreed on. SAO, I think, is more targeted towards the teen college age audience, and I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is more of a teen-focused audience, but it can also appeal to kids, and it can also appeal to older weebs. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Is also just one of those things. Mostly the anime is designed to sell card games, so Pokemon, it's intended to sell video games, and to an extent SAO is designed to do the same thing. But again, it's hard to compare these things just because they're three completely different seasons. They each do their own thing right, and I think they each target their own fan base pretty well, in my opinion. So I really don't think there's a way to compare it Iris, and I hope that answers your question. But yeah, like I said, that one's a hard one to answer just because it's three completely different series, three different genres. But anyway, Iris, with that said, though, I hope that answered your questions. Look forward to hearing from you again in the near future. Hope you have an awesome 2020. Okay, next up we have Arato Sanchez Rojas. And I am sorry if I completely butchered that name. I'm trying my best. But Arato, you go on to say to me, Happy Holidays, Templar, and best wishes for 2020. Thank you, man. Same to you. Hope you had a wonderful holiday and best wishes for 2020. You asked me, which SAO villain do I despise the most? And then you go on to say, if SAO and Alternative GGO made a crossover, what would be the conflict? And 3, if you would have a dual monster spirit from Yu-Gi-Oh!, who would it be? And then you go on to say thank you and keep up the work, both YouTube and IRL. Thank you very much, man. It means a lot to me. To answer your questions, which SAO villain do I despise the most? That has got to go to Oberon or Sugo. That guy was just completely off of his rocker. He was insane. Can never forgive him for what he did to Asuna in ALO. That guy was just way, way out there. That man has got to be the most infamous and hated SAO villain ever, and it's easy to see why. That guy was just a creep and a pervert, in my opinion. So, yeah, there's a special place in hell for people like that. So, yeah, I would think that Oberon, or Sugo, rather, would have to go to the role of SAO villain I despise the most. Then you say, if SAO and Alternative GGO made a crossover, what would be the conflict? And it's funny, I actually said this before. If it were to happen, it would be either a big tournament that Sinon got involved with or something revolving around Sinon, or we could just have them randomly meet on the field of battle in a regular SAO series. I was kind of hoping that the battle going on at the very beginning of Alicization in Gun Gale Online would have been the Alternative Gun Gale Online gang versus Sinon's gang. I would have loved to have seen that. I think these two teams would have been a great matchup. Sadly, that didn't happen. And it would have also been nice to have seen him make the crossover when the SAO gang is reaching out to their friends on the Japanese servers to come into the underworld here and fight the Dark Territory forces and to help Kirito and Asuna. That would have been a great way to see him, because in the light novel you get players from ALO and GGO together. I would have thought that would be a great way to tie him in too. Don't think that's going to happen. But I don't think it would necessarily be a conflict that would bring them together. I think it'd be something revolving around Sinon, probably a big tournament that she would have to win for some reason, and they would go up against some of the most OP teams in the game, and I would say that that would definitely be a top contender in my opinion. So if they were to do a crossover, that's how I would see it happening if you were to ask me my honest opinion. And then, if I would have a dual monster spirit from Yu-Gi-Oh!, who would it be? Now, I don't know if you're referring to the card or just an actual spirit character. If you're referring to spirit character, I would say without question, I would love to have a Tim by my side. That guy was just awesome. He was a badass. He was just great all the way around. Great character, very well written, very mysterious, very dark, but at the same time, very kind, very caring, the best friend, the guy that you would want to have your back. So yeah, it would be that. If it would be to a card spirit, because the card spirits are also a thing too, I would have to say probably, and again, I'm showing a bit of bias here, I would have to say that it would probably be Kuriboh. Just because that Kuriboh he's the lovable furball that has all the answers. You know, you gotta love that. Again, I'm showing my bias here towards the original generation, but since it is a thing for both character spirits and actual monster spirits, it would probably have to be Yugi and a Tim, or Kuriboh, or both. I mean, hey, if you're gonna go for broke, you may as well just go for the whole enchilada. So anyway, with that said though, Arato, I hope that answered your questions. Again, I'm sorry if I butchered that name. I hope you have an awesome 2020, and I look forward to hearing from you again in the near future. Okay, and our final question comes from Jessica Friedman. And you asked me, do I think Ash will take the Galar Gym Challenge and compete in the league? And is there a chance chance of Serena coming back at one point or any other of Ash's friends? And would you like to see a series of special episodes showing us what Ash's travel companions from the past are up to these days? And to answer that question, Jessica, I could see Ash taking on the Galar Gym region challenge. I could see that happening. If it does happen, I would say it would happen towards the end of this series, but I definitely could see that happening. Just because, it is Ash. They always have to do some kind of league or some kind of big tournament challenge in a series. I would think that if they were to do it, it would be towards the end. And I could totally see Ash taking on the Galar region in his gym battle quest at the end of the series, in my opinion. Whether it happens or not is yet to be seen, but I could see it happening. As far as do I think there's a chance of Serena coming back or any of the other past friends, I believe I answered this before. If there was a series where this would to happen, this would be the series to do it. I don't care if it's just cameos. Shout outs to past generations, past series. Here, this would be the generation to pull it off, the series to pull it off. Whether it happens or not, it's yet to be seen. I think there's a good chance of it happening, but again, I just don't know. I'd love to see it happen, and I think this would be the series to have it happen. Let her roll. We'll just see what happens. That's all I have to say about that. Good chance of it happening. And then you ask me what... Well, I guess this is all one question. Then you say about the special or a series of special episodes showing us what the travel companions from the past are up to these days. They used to do that. And I think Gen 6 was the last time we had such an episode, except we didn't see Serena. But usually at the end of every generation, we get at least one or two special episodes that shows just what everybody's up to. We didn't get that with the Sun and Moon saga. We didn't get that with Serena at the end of Gen 6. So I would love to see it happen. I would love to see that tradition continue. Whether it actually happens or not, I just don't know. It's just Pokemon's been all over the place lately, and it's been so hard to predict. Some people love that. Some people hate that. I'm in the latter. But yeah, I would love to see it. Whether it actually happens or not, though, Jessica, I really don't know. And I hope that answered your questions, Jessica. I hope you had a great 2019, a good holiday. Best wishes for 2020. And there we have it, everybody. Those were all of your questions for the hashtag AskTemplar74 end-of-year Q&A for 2019. Thank you so much for participating, everybody. Like I said, these are one of my favorite videos to do every year just because I get to interact with all of you guys. I really enjoy it. Thank you so much for the well wishes and the feedback on the channel. I look forward to seeing you guys in 2020 and continuing to do great stuff for you in 2020. With that said, though, everybody, again, happy holidays from Templar74. Hope you guys all had great holidays. Hope you have an amazing 2020. And as always, everybody, Templar74 signing off, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.